The vengeful ghosts of past slaves, the tortured spirits of their keepers, and cursed native burial sites await on this exploration of the hauntings of Traveler's Rest. Let's dive right in. Hey all, and thanks for joining me in exploring the captivating past and hauntings of the iconic plantation Traveler's Rest. Standing as a testament to the antebellum South, this prestigious estate is chock full of dark histories, chilling ghost stories, and old hill folklore. Are you ready to get started? Traveler's Rest, or Golgotha, that's placed within the iconic Music City of Nashville, Tennessee, is a historic plantation home and its associated grounds, which are saturated in a long and dark history of slaving, and that are shrouded in a multitude of ghost stories and local legends. Historically, from as early as the late 1200s, lands that would later hold Traveler's Rest were occupied by Mississippian tribes native to the region, and based on an 1805 documented account by one Dr. Rush Nutt, this particular site would host a community complete with an earthen mound, a palisade wall, and very well could have spanned around 10 to 12 acres. While it's unknown exactly what happened to these tribes, by the arrival of white settlers to the region through the 1700s, the area had been left completely abandoned. Towards the end of the 18th century, in 1789, one John Overton would arrive to the locale that would one day hold Nashville, but that, at the time, was known as the Merrow District of North Carolina. Over subsequent years, Overton would establish a residence in his own business in future downtown Nashville. In 1796, Tennessee was officially founded, and shortly afterwards, and in seeing the value in land control, John would acquire a large plot just to the south of Nashville, where he would begin planning the construction of a grand estate that would be run off of the backbreaking and highly unethical labor of enslaved individuals. During this period, Overton would obtain an appointment with first U.S. President George Washington and would be appointed as supervisor of the revenue for the District of Tennessee, and later as a traveling circuit court judge. During his time as a judge, the prominent socialite would recognize the need for a formal compilation of written laws and, as an active reader and writer himself, would set to work creating what were initially called the Overton Reports, but that would eventually be published as the Tennessee Reports instead, in volumes 1 and 2, and that would stand as a cornerstone in the foundation of Tennessee law as a whole. Notably, Overton's close ties to Andrew Jackson would cement his position in a leaders' circle known as the Nashville Junto, which would help Jackson attain presidency, and that would strongly influence national politics and the banking system. In 1799, Overton would begin construction of his formerly planned estate on the lands he'd purchased in 96. After the discovering of Mississippian remains while digging out the cellar, he would first call the estate Golgotha. However, by the early 19th century, he would alter its moniker to Traveler's Rest instead, to better reflect the solitude it offered between his long rides on horseback for various formalities and appointments. In 1812, Traveler's Rest would welcome expansions to accommodate additional members of the Overton family, and in 1820, John would be wed to one widow Mary McConnell White May, who had 5 children from her first marriage and with whom he'd conceive another 3 children, resulting in the construction of a long L connected to the home. Together, the family would reside at the Rest for over a decade, before, on April 12th of 1833, John would meet his fate right within the confines of the prestigious premises, following which, through subsequent years, various members of the Overton family would inherit different parcels of the late judge's prized property, with Golgotha acting as a centerpiece all the way up until 1946. Following John Sr.'s passing, Mary would remain on site until her death 16 years later in 1862, after which Overton's son John Jr., his wife Harriet, and their children would continue to reside at the Rest. And during this period, it's documented that the plantation's farm, which spanned over 1,000 acres and included 80 enslaved individuals, was worth several $1 million, which, as most of you are probably already aware, in the 1800s was no small chunk of dough. But everything was soon to change for the morally corrupt family, and as the Civil War raged, the Overtons were relieved of both their property and the human lives they'd controlled for so long. Under threat of arrest, John Jr., who was at this point a colonel in the Confederacy, would flee Traveler's Rest and retreat behind Confederate lines. And up until the Battle of Nashville, which occurred from December 15th through the 16th of 1864, the old plantation would act as a headquarters to Confederate Lieutenant General John Bell Hood, after which, with the Army of Tennessee effectively disbanded, it would lie in Union hands for a time. Following the ultimate defeat of the South, Colonel John Jr. would require presidential pardon before he could even return to his family abode, after which, in 1887, he would issue final additions to Traveler's Rest in the form of upstairs and downstairs rooms being constructed onto the L. Traveler's Rest would remain in Overton family hands until 1946, when it was purchased by Dr. John Youmans, and in 1951, Youmans would sell surrounding farmlands to the L&N Railroad, who would leave all of 3 acres, including the Overton home, to the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America in the state of Tennessee. Unfortunately, the old home would fall into disrepair and would even come under threat of demolition. However, in 1954, restoration efforts would be put in place in order to transform the property into a museum, and on December 30th of 1969, it would be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. More recently, in 1995, construction at the site's visitor center would unearth additional human remains, and as of 2008, the Traveler's Rest Plantation and Museum now exhibits a complete history of the Overton family and their role through the Civil War. Traveler's Rest remains open into the present, offering stunning landscapes, a wealth of educational materials, and, according to legend, a range of chilling hauntings, with both guests and staff reporting objects sighted moving on their own, instances of doors opening and closing by themselves, and extreme cold patches felt even on hot days. Not surprisingly, a large number of the site's supernatural happenings are attributed to the disturbance of native remains, and documentation entails phantom chanting and drum beats heard on the winds, the smell of fire smoke when no fires are present, and encounters with entities clad in traditional Mississippian attire. Reported across the whole of the site are instances of lights turning on and off by themselves, accounts of personal electronics behaving erratically or fully charged phones going dead in seconds, the constant feelings of being watched or being followed by someone or something unseen, and encounters with shadowy manifestations that stalk lone visitors at great lengths. Other standing theories attribute ghostly phenomena to the past lives of the many enslaved on Golgotha grounds, and some have reported hearing old labor songs emanating from thin air, the smells of cooking food near former slave quarters areas, and sightings of individuals in surrounding fields that are there for moments before fading away. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and hits on both communicative devices and thermal grids, while others have told of terrifying instances in which they are brushed up against, pushed, hit, or even scratched by unseen hands. Not surprisingly, the ghosts of both Judge John Sr. and Mary have been encountered across the property, sometimes separately and at other times together, seemingly going about their daily lives as if unaware that they've been dead for nearly 2 centuries now. And several other unidentified entities are believed to be the manifestations of either Overton children or of various relatives that once enjoyed the luxury of Traveler's Rest. Also reported throughout museum grounds are phantom wafts of tobacco smoke, the spectral strains of old-timey music, accounts of doors locking or unlocking by themselves, and instances in which furniture or displays are found rearranged overnight, or in which beds are discovered unmade and with body-shaped imprints in them even after the premises has been locked for hours. The Battle of Nashville was a particularly bloody confrontation and is believed to have left a paranormal imprint on a good bulk of the region, with Traveler's Rest being no exception. Several perturbing reports entail phantom gunshots or cannon fire, the clash of swords, and run-ins with troops of ghostly soldiers that are sometimes locked in battle, and that appear so solid many mistake them for actors before, in under an instant, they fade into nothingness. Lastly, while the courts would eventually pardon John Jr., granting him forgiveness from a legal standpoint, this would do little to change a bulk of America's views on his family's ties to money, politics, and human slaving, and it's believed that his tarnished reputation likely left his spirit restless. Incidentally, a ghostly figure matching the Colonel's description has been sighted roaming the property in seeming distress, and has several times been witnessed being overtaken in terror by a swarm of black mist that some tell is the vengeful energy of the men and women whose freedom he stole, exacting their well-deserved revenge. Taking into account its intriguingly dark history and impressively chilling assortment of associated ghost stories spanning all the way back to native folklore, Golgotha remains a site frozen in time and stands as a testament to the fact that sometimes those who lead wicked existences and those who have their lives taken from them might never truly find rest. Thanks for joining me in exploring the haunting legends surrounding Traveler's Rest. If you enjoyed hearing these histories and ghost stories, subscribe to my channel, throw this upload a like, and share me with anyone you feel could use a good scare. I'll catch you all next time.